I don't know if we have the vice president by this call, Dr. Akimbo. If Dr. Akimbo is not around, I would suggest that the financial secretary, so Mr. Sahid Adedokun, gives us like an opening speech, just nothing less than 3 minutes, please, just to let us have an idea of what we are doing here today on behalf of the ISOC Nigeria chapter.
Thank you very much, Madam, our very honorable treasurer, Mrs. Priscilla Mimba. Please, you are all welcome to this Privacy Day 2025. It is our first event for the year, and we sincerely appreciate everybody for joining to kickstart the year with this noble project. Yes, we are gathered here to look at what privacy, data privacy especially, is all about. We want to understand what we need to put in place to be able to take control of our data. And most importantly, we need to look at how aware are we that we are even generating those data in the first place. Because a number of us have our data line on our phones every time. And this phone or any of these modems that we carry around generate data every second. Some we don't even know they generate. Some we do know, but we care less. For bringing us together today, we want to look at what are those things that we should actually be mindful of to even be assured that, okay, these are the type of data that is being generated from these are our devices, and what are controls that we are supposed to put in place to check that these devices and the data they generate are actually what we want others to share. And the ones we do not want to share, how and what should we do to review the settings on these devices so that they don't generate the data in the first place? And if they generate it, who do they share it with? So all these, I believe, are the reasons for bringing together this Data Privacy Day so that we are aware and we know what to do. Checkmate whatever data is being captured from our activities, and we have control of how it is being used by those that are harnessing this data, so that we have the full information of what is being done to our data. And of course, we have a panel that would look into this and decipher all aspects. I will leave the floor for them to do justice to the topic and be able to drive home what we are actually looking to derive from being on this call this afternoon. Thank you very much for being here, everybody. And I hope you have a very information-filled session today with our panelists. Madam Priscilla, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you for being time conscious. Thank you for that insightful opening. So we just dive right in with the panel discussion. And on our panel list today, we have brought people who have high experience, who have expertise in data privacy, who have expertise in cybersecurity, who have done one or two roles in data privacy from various parts of the country and beyond. Our first panelist, we have Mr. Loveday, who is an AWS cloud engineer. He has a strong foundation in digital policies, governance, and compliance. He's a fellow of the Virtual Nigeria School of Internet Governance. He's also combined technical expertise with a deep understanding of the intersection between technology and policy. He's currently the co-chair of the Nigeria Internet Governance Forum, which is in NYIGF. And he's also volunteering with Prenez for Nigeria as a session development team lead for the third annual conference. We warmly welcome you, Mr. Loveday. Thank you for taking your time out to join us and share your insightful experiences on this webinar. Secondly, we have on the panel Ms. Rowena Bernard. Rowena Bernard is a data analyst, 2 master's degrees in mathematics and data science, and over a degree. She specializes in data analysis, predictive modeling, and business intelligence, with a focus on leveraging data for societal impact and innovation. Rowena has worked across public and private sectors, developing predictive models for energy markets, analyzing private and government data, and leading research for healthcare mobile applications. Lastly, on our panelists, we have Mr. Oche Paul. Mr. Oche is an academic support advisor at the University of Jos in Plateau State. He's an ASC instructor trainer, and he trains on courses like CCNA security, network security, CCNP security operations at the University of Jos ITC Center. Welcome, Mr. Oche. Thank you so much for taking your time to be here. I'll dive right into the session as I've introduced my guests and our speakers for today. My first question will go to Mr. Oche. We know that many Nigerians are still unfamiliar with their data privacy rights. A lot of people still don't know what data privacy is and the rights that they even have as citizens. Can you explain in very simple terms what the NDPR, which is the Nigeria Data Protection Regulatory Body, offers to individuals? What practical steps can people take to better understand and exercise their rights?
Thank you very much, Mrs. Igba, for this opportunity. Thank you, members of the community. Thank you, panelists. Data privacy largely focuses on ensuring that the data that we generate each time we have interactions on our devices are kept within the approved reachability rate. Let me put it that way. So an organization, should I say, in Nigeria, that is saddled with some of that responsibility, say NIDA. There's an act, I think 2023, that established a body, NDPA. Their role is to create awareness in promoting data privacy in Nigeria. The challenge we've had over time is that a lot of people are not aware of their existence, particularly a lot of people who are within the cybersecurity space, even within the data space, are not really aware. So the responsibilities and also the services available to populace through this organization is not very there. So understanding privacy rights, particularly under the Nigeria Data Protection Regulation, is very crucial. Individuals will need to, particularly in Nigeria. So looking at individuals to be able to better comprehend the role that this organization provides and that particular document provides. It also makes available to them their rights and how public awareness can actually promote data privacy. One of the things I say we can actually look at with respect to ensuring everybody actually gets to know what happens there is to familiarize people with the NDPR provision. Very important. And this is largely the right to consent before personal data is collected, the right to access correct information, the right to be able to also delete my personal information, the right to withdraw my consent regarding any information that is generated from me. And all of this, people need to be aware of it. So also being able to get educational resources. These are replete in this age of resource databases that are quite available everywhere. People can actually leverage that. There are digital platforms, right, that are made available. Like I mentioned earlier, organizations like NIDA, that's the National Information Technology Development Agency, they provide NDPR resources online and people can actually access those. They are very available. A simple Google search can make that very available. Then there's also the need to engage data protection experts. Workshops need to happen. Fora need to be hosted where privacy professionals like Mr. Loveday can tap into his vast resources. When you were reading out his resume, I was intrigued when you said he had a leaning towards policy. Policy is another major thing because a lot of people do most of this without really understanding there are policies that exist. So we empower individuals, as I conclude on my submission now, empower individuals by public awareness, ensure that this awareness contributes to building trust, because these campaigns don't build trust between individuals and the organizations that collect this information. It happens every day. Students write JAMB, they submit their information. Students or people, they do promos like Coca-Cola promos. People collect phone numbers, personal information. You go to the hospital, they get your personal data. But for some reason, people don't know. So people submit it without really knowing. And then some people query it because they don't understand what's there between the data that they collect. Then the organizations themselves who collect this data would need to be encouraged to comply, right? There must be some pressure for them to comply on how to handle people's information and data. I would say that we can achieve broader public awareness, particularly with reference to data privacy rights. And we can do that by ensuring that communities, particularly people who are in rural areas, some part of urban areas, are not left behind, so that they understand the rights that they have under the NDPR document. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Oche. And my next question, I'll direct it to you, Madam Rowena. When it comes to enforcing the NDPR or the acts that we have here in Nigeria, what do you think are the biggest obstacles in Nigeria today? I know that your experience spans between Nigeria and Europe. So I would like to know some of the solutions or examples from other countries that, could work here or that we can apply here in Nigeria.
Hello, everyone. Yes, I heard your question about what are the different programs that can be implemented in Nigeria that can actually help the safeguarding of Nigerians. I would say first of all is to have a very strong government policy in which data collection and data management is done by design, which means we are not thinking about protecting the data after collection. You have security systems that protect any access to this data. For example, you have your blockchain system instead of just a direct password system. Also, you want to have a direct access to the consent of the user. So you want it to be very clear where the user can go and say, I give my consent or I revoke my consent. I want you to send me any more messages. We know how this process will go if it were in Nigeria. You have to be present in the bank building. Then you have to probably find someone that fill a form, and then wait who knows how long before you can revoke data that you have given them. But here in Europe, it's a very direct process. So it's just a button on your app. You click and say, I revoke my consent for you to message me or contact me. The data is calculated from the beginning of the system of data collection, data management will be one policy, making this a government policy really help the Nigerian people to keep their data safe and private.
Okay, thank you so much, Rowena. Now I direct my question to you, Mr. Lo. I think listening to Oche, listening to Rowena, they have spoken how our data are being collected and how they are being used. So one of the ways that data is being collected right now in Nigeria is using biometric data, which is a big thing in Nigeria, like your NIN registration, that as your national identity card registration. I want to know what measures need to be put in place to prevent this data from falling into the wrong hands. Sometimes people call you out of nowhere, where they have your number, where they have data about you. They will even go as far as calling people in your family or mentioning things that are really private to you. And these things happen because there is data leakage. So what measures need to be put in place by people, organizations like NIN that handles our national registration, organizations like that do SIM registration, like and the rest? What measures need to be put in place for this data not to fall in the wrong hands?
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Going straight to the question, I want to cite an instance of what I experienced in 2022 when I traveled to Akwa Ibom State, returning back to Port Harcourt. Getting to one of their major park, I was to pick up a ticket to join one of the transits. They asked me for my phone number. Immediately I gave them my phone number. The next thing, my details were just printed alongside the ticket. I asked myself, how did they get to know my name? Not even only my first name, both my surname and middle name. I thought this could be, I can't really understand who must have given them access to this data. The only way they can gain access to this is from the service providers whom I have registered with. Then you go to other local motor parks where you go to pick tickets, travel from one point to another. They give you tickets and request that you write your name on a manifest. In that manifest, you write your name, the next of kin, your phone number. These are avenues of throwing our data vulnerable. And the question right now is, what happens when these people pick up this data? Do they have the capacity? Do they have the resources to manage this data appropriately to ensure that the data they have collected is not being vulnerable in any kind? So that is the issue, that is on the area of individuals and enterprises. So the other aspects, which is a very key concern, is government infrastructures. I could remember the INEC engagement during the 2023 election, getting ad hoc staff to work, and the census enrollment that was cancelled 2023. The publication of individuals' data on the wall, just pasted on the wall. Everybody working, take a photograph, those details bearing people's name, their local government, their sex, and sometimes their phone details. These are areas in which governments are also exposing individual data. Then go to the academic communities. I remember those days when I went to secure admission into my school. There are some processes of application for admission. And when the admission was offered, the details of those who were offered admissions were pasted on the notice board without protection. The same way when you were also applying for NYC, your details were also pasted on the notice board with your phone name, your phone number, and several other key PIs of an individual. So these are the areas in which our data are being thrown vulnerable. So the question now is, how can we manage the continual collection of data in our daily activities, both in private enterprises and public enterprises? When it comes to my attention, when I was studying with NDPC to get in collaboration with .org on the responsible data management course last year, one of their cohort last year, I got to understand that the major thing we put into consideration, whether we be the private enterprise or public enterprise, the major thing we have to put into consideration when it comes to data collection is, first, if I don't have the resources to manage what I am taking, there is no need capturing those details. Last year, during the Nigeria Youth Internet Governance Forum 2024 at Port Harcourt, one of the school guardians walked up to one of our coordinators and asked, "Can I bring the names of my students for them to be registered properly?" And then reported it to me. I said, "No, we don't have the resources to manage your data. All we need is the number of students who came here for this event, and it's okay for us." So that is how critical, how important we have to look into what we acquire. Before you acquire, ask yourself, do you have the requisite resources to manage? Both the government, both the private agencies, both the civil society organizations, that should be the first thing you have to look at. Do I have the resources to manage? First, make sure they are practicable and in alignment with the provisions of the NDPC or the provisions of the NDPA. Thank God for the NDPA that was set into implementation right from 2023. It is helping us to checkmate the excesses of our data, how we make use of data, how we collect data, and how we store data, and the life cycle of data from its initiation to its destruction. So that is one of the major things we must consider, having the requisite resources to manage whichever data we acquire at every given point in time. If we can define that as an individual, private enterprises, civil society organizations, and government, we can help manage data properly, no matter where we find ourselves, especially social impact organizations. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Lovely. Thank you for even bringing relatable and practical examples of how our data are being collected in one way or the other, consciously or unconsciously, in the various organizations or wherever we find ourselves, how our data are being collected and how they may be used or misused. Now I'm going back to you, Mr. Chair. And my question to you is, with the activation of the fintech platforms in Nigeria, we have OPay, Piggyback, so many fintechs, company or platform, and they're actually doing so well in Nigeria. So I am wondering, and I'm sure many are also wondering, how do we as consumers ensure that our financial and personal data are truly secured with these fintech platforms? We know that there are times that we'll hear rumors or sometimes see them put out, some briefs to say some of those fintech companies are not really to be trusted or that they don't have licenses to operate very well in Nigeria. So how do we, and I know that a lot of us use OPay, a lot of us use money, but a lot of us use some of these resources. How do we as consumers ensure that our financial and our personal data are truly secured with those platforms?
All right, thank you. I love this submission when he captured NDPC and NDPA, the commission itself and the act. My main concern is not even the passage of that document becoming an act in Nigeria. My main concern is enforcement. A lot of those organizations can actually go away with whatever issues occur with people's personal information because we know how you operate within this climate. Money can exchange hands and there are certain people who are perhaps already bought, but there needs to be strict compliance. Before we get to the people, they offer services. The services they offer is give or take opportunity for us to transact. It makes financial transactions a lot easier and is an immediate alternative to the traditional banks. The fintech group of people come with these solutions. I remember there was a time when we had some issues with some banks and people immediately moved to OPay, moved to Money Point. I think it was last week, some rumor about some amount of money being hacked. Money Point had to come back to say, hey, we did not lose anything. And that introduced some level of distrust. I said something earlier about building trust. For this trust to occur, the organizations that provide these services need to be held accountable. The Act, you shouldn't receive anybody's personally identifiable information, the PIIs, without having the proper infrastructure to cater for it. And like Lovedays mentioned, that Act captures from the point of collection of that information to the point where it terminates. I could decide in the middle of it to say, look, I want to discontinue. You'd sometimes notice some people send you information, some people place a call and they have some access to this information. So yes, this Act is there. We know what the Act entails. We know what is expected of service providers. But if there's no enforcement, every user is going to have to be at the mercy of these vendors. So while we wait for that enforcement to happen, which I'm very certain can be championed through this organization, some publications, some seminars, some sensitization, some collaborations with the agencies responsible for enforcement, I would say that we need to do a lot of education. People who use these services need to be educated on how to use most of these platforms, because most of these platforms are applications or apps installed on our phone. You must understand that the person who developed that app is perhaps not even a member of that organization. He's just some tech guys who developed the app. And of course, every developer has interactions with information received of the user of the app. So there must be an enforcement on how these people use that app. People must be educated. People must be educated on they should limit, how do I put it now, unnecessary permissions to these applications on their devices. Some applications require interacting with your phone book, interacting with your gallery and all of this. And they keep mining information to access the contacts or location. You'd only be allowed when they're using the application. Protect yourself. You limit personal information that is being shared. Ensure privacy settings on your device. You configure a device that hosts the app, particularly fintech app, adjusts privacy settings to accommodate what should not reveal too much. If you have any form of interaction with a third-party application, I'm the first party, and the organization is the second party. Any other third-party application, sometimes making payments require some handshake with some other gateway. Let's ensure that we're cautious of linking third-party applications to any of those platforms. Very importantly, a lot of people we like free things. Some part of the people just like free stuff. ensure that you avoid using public internet connections that do not have any form of security. Ensure that your own connection that allows you interaction with those fintech applications is what you have been able to provide and you're sure is secure. People normally have to be very wary of imitations from these fintech applications or fintech service providers, particularly scams. Look at the spellings of the names, the logos, and all of this. And so that's why I open by saying that it is very important that people are educated. Ensure that you review your account activities. The other day, someone mentioned something about his network disappeared, and after a while, he got to check his application after the network got back, only to realize that some monies have been moved from his account. Again, you see, that cannot be possible without access to the fintech, the app. So users need to be very careful, need to adjust a lot of things, limit personal information, ensure that, again, they understand data policies, right? Be able to ensure as much as possible for the fintech platforms, understand how your data is collected. I understand that the act requires them to ensure they have the infrastructure to handle the information collected. There's a challenge. When you install applications or use services, there's a long document that is sent to you, and most times people just click and go without really knowing the details of it as much as possible so that we don't have these issues. Read what it's saying and understand whether your private data is sent, received, or collected. Ensure you use very strong encryptions or passwords, verify the authenticity of the application you're downloading from any of those stores, whether it is App Store or Google Play Store. Remember that interactions with these fintechs is largely through applications. Of course, very few of them, people have opened account without having to go into the bank, the organization building itself. I heard Rowena speaking about how that was possible in the climb in Europe. Until we are able to have a trusted system here, I would say people should, as much as possible, verify before they engage. These are my submissions for now. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Alche. I've heard that we should ensure that the right permissions are granted on our apps and that we should always review our account activities. So my question to you, Ms. Rowena, awareness seems to be a major hurdle, and Oche, every time he talks, he kind of mentions awareness. I want to talk about awareness. I want us to also reflect on those in the rural areas. What are some creative ways we can use to spread the word about data privacy and make it relevant to this that may not have so much exposure to technology? What creative ways can we make them understand and give them more awareness on data privacy? Ms. Rowena.
Thank you for the question. First of all, I think the Nigerian people are learning about the dangers of this data leak and are not having a good data privacy system only when they have major errors like some money missing from the bank or some impersonation using your personal data. So I think we should not wait until people have to learn from bad experiences on how to secure their data or how to ensure that people's data are secure. But one of the ways that you would get maximum cooperation from organizations who collect and store this data will be government policy. I know that we have some government policy, but the penalties in Europe for government organizations for misuse or mis-storage of data is up to millions of euros for a small company, which means organizations take this very seriously. If you ask me, I would say we start from here. We make incentives, penalties, just to make sure that the data processors or data manager have an incentive to keep this data secure and not exchange it for marketing purposes, sell it or leave it insecure. Now, if you are thinking about programs to make people aware, especially in rural places, you may need to have storytelling on the radio or TV to give them examples on how misuse of data could actually affect them badly. It's easy to take precaution when you have a family member who has lost money or been impersonated. But before this happens, I think it would be a good thing if we have NGOs sponsor a short program on the TV or on the radio, telling people, these are the data that you have out there. This is how you can protect it. And this is how you can insist that organizations who have your data should handle it. This is my opinion. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Very strong point she raised then. One of the points she mentioned was to get before it happens, right? Storytelling is one thing. Folklore is very good. There are a lot of morals we learned growing up that came from storytelling. In this era, we can actually take care of that. The people who can help proliferate this storytelling are traditional leaders, right? What we call the Miangwas or the Olori Egbes, they can contribute to it. You can also target religious leaders. I mentioned something about trust. If the organizations who hold this data are not seen to be trusted, then we can create a situation where they have to be brought to be trusted. I can demand, like Rowena mentioned, that an organization holding my information have to meet up. So having been aware of the data privacy or what it entails to hold my data, we can demand by advocacy. We can demand that this be done. Cultural leaders, religious figures, they hold a very strong influence. Football matches, campaigns, child education. Those are ways we can ensure that people are educated. She mentioned something very strong. We must understand and not take for granted. Digital literacy as it is today is not that strong in rural areas. Yes, they use gadgets. They get exposed to trends, but they don't really understand the implication of certain things that they submit. So there are certain people they trust within this organization or society where they stay. We can campaign through them, campaign, advocacies, and the rest of it. I just thought to lend voice to what she added.
Okay. So my final question to you, Mr. Loveday, because I'm really going to be strict on time before we take the questions on the chat or if any other person has a question. My final question to you, Mr. Loveday, will be 2 in 1. The first question is, we know that data breaches are a real concern in Nigeria, especially for people that run small businesses. Like we gave an example where you said they approach you with the data and you outrightly said you will not be able to handle that data. You will not be able to manage the data, speaking from an informed point of view. So data breaches when it comes to small businesses, this happens, often, because sometimes they lack the resources to have that data, to keep them. So what are some practicals to improve their data security? That is my first part of the question. Then the second part of the question is, looking ahead, the future of privacy in Nigeria, looking ahead, what trends, changes in privacy and data protection do Nigeria will face or may face in the next 5 years?
Okay, starting with the breaches and practical security measures of small businesses. First of all, I want to point to the fact within our economic ecosystem, things are going so bad. People who run businesses, no matter how small, are after gaining money to feed oneself. Talking about making savings is almost a secondary priority these days because the income they earn every day is not even fetching them a good livelihood. You have food to eat, you have rent to pay, you have bills to carry. So when these kind of persons have been approached with the issues of privacy and security, they think it as something that is not relevant at the moment. What they consider most relevant and prioritize is how much they earn in a day, how much they are taking home, and how much will remain rate of yesterday for tomorrow. So that is what people are considering. It is becoming a critical issue within our ecosystem to manage privacy and security. The best we can do to help the situation, as the government and all its agencies are trying its best to reshape and redress the economic hardship in the country. NDPC and all its sister bodies who are working collaboratively to expand their reach and also their impact in communities in the aspect of advancing privacy and security issues within our local nationals. What they can do is to look at the areas of incentives, support small-scale businesses. When these incentives are there, the small-scale business owners can have enough time to leverage other opportunities, to think wide on the protection of their customers' data. Looking at the current situation now, if there's any data breach within any small-scale business, I don't think what they will be considering is the customer data. What they'll be considering is how much have they lost. And that's it tied to the customer, because if the customers are no longer there for them, they won't make much money. But they forget that in this discussion, practical steps to mitigating issues of privacy and security when breaches occurs is, first of all, you should be able to report to law enforcement agencies. Be able to have some captures of evidence of those breaches, activities that happened before and after those breaches occurred, so that you as a small-scale business owner can be able to pull yourself out from the issue pending, because if you don't save yourself as an individual, you can still be dragged into the penalties of those breaches. So the major thing is ensure you report first when there is any breaches, report to the law enforcement agencies and do all the necessary documentations to be sure that you have been able to hand over the breaches to the appropriate agencies, and always be available for further interrogation. Police is your friend. All law enforcement agencies are friends. We can build a safer and better society when we collaborate together. Give every agency the needful and rightful information they need to work. That is when we can make our society a safe place. Then the future of privacy in Nigeria. Due to the overwhelming population of Nigeria, getting to have privacy, get down to the grassroots, is a difficult affair. Starting from 2023, when the act was passed into law, the regulation was accepted as an act. And 2024, I see NDPC doing a whole lot of work in partnership with both public and private enterprises, especially reaching out to sister public agencies to advancing awareness. That is very nice. And at the wake of the year 2025, they have also continued with activities of capacity building, which we all can see the training of data protection officers that is ongoing at Lagos and also ongoing at Abuja. These are the aspects that NDPC is trying to help build more capacity in these areas. There is need for enormous awareness. The awareness we need to control the future when it comes to privacy issues and security in Nigeria should be focused on the youth. The youth bears the largest population of persons who make use or who rely on the digital technologies to advance opportunities, securing job, career growth, and for social activities. The elderly, when they are faced with the situation of digital technologies, and when they are faced with these situations, sometimes they get worn out and wearied, and most of them start getting retired every day, returning home. But we, the young persons, we are at the core using digital facilities, infrastructures, awareness. Getting the youth involved in the process of awareness is one of the key things. So the NDPC and other sister public agencies, both private and civil society organizations, can come together, partner with the youth-led initiative, like we have the Nigerian Youth Internet Governance Forum, partner with them, provide them with the needed support and sponsorship to advance advocacy, to advance the discussion of privacy within our local canals, so that this awareness, this sensitization can be at the tip of everybody's finger, without leaving it only for NDPC, without leaving it only for ISOC, without leaving it only for the government, because the government can only interact with people they have access to. They don't have access at all time to the masses who are in the grassroots. The youth plays enormous role, trying to educate one another. That we can be able to capture the issue of privacy. Because if we don't get it right now when it comes to awareness, it's going to beat hard on us. It's going to beat hard on us because as it stands now, we hear about issues of internet fraud every day, which we now know as a Yahoo. It is a current trend in almost all the states, cities of Nigeria. The young persons are running to it because they see it as a lucrative avenues for them to make wealth for themselves. It started some days ago. Little by little, it was able to be engineered to the level it is today that every young person who has no other opportunity, they want to leverage the internet fraud platforms. So the same way we can help to put our energies, put our resources to fuel awareness to capture the minds of the youth. Once we capture the minds of the youth, we can be able to save ourselves some lots of damages that privacy and security issues will cost us in the future. Because if we don't do that right now, if we don't set a platform, it will gradually hit at us in Nigeria, which government, private, civil society, academias and technologists, or everybody will be affected and nobody will be left behind. Awareness, partnership with youth-led initiatives are really essential towards advancing advocacy, awareness of privacy, data protection within our society. Thank you very much.
I'm always very quick to adding very sound submission there by Lovedays. I'd also want to add that we should cascade it down. He mentioned it, but I want to emphasize, let's cascade it down. You realize that when we were younger, there were certain television shows that taught a lot of morals. Depending on the era that you were in, there was Bassi and Company, there was Tales by Moonlight, all of those things are missing. The reason is a lot of people don't listen to this generation. They are more on social media platforms than on traditional media. How about in the collaboration, ensure that a huge drive is done in the most trending platforms? Say Twitter, for example, say TikTok, for example, and the rest of them. You notice something happened just yesterday. A popular musician divorced his wife and it is trending. You can imagine if you are able to, on that level of trend, take something about data privacy and generate a story around it and be able to communicate the pros and the cons of data privacy. Another thing I want to add is most of the people who are in Abuja and in Lagos undergoing the training now, if you look at their age group, they are not the youth. Very few of them, because their per diems are going to be paid, there are certain estacos that will be paid. So some people rush for it at the expense of communicating what to preserve the future. He raised a great point. Because if you observe, the people who are targeted as culprits of data privacy offenders are not the old people, they're the young people. And so they'll actually perceive this to be like a target against them. But if they are educated on the platforms where they are, platforms like social media platform, we'll be able to achieve a lot. Let's cascade it down to assimilable language. No more TV, no more radio. These people will do the traditional print. They can do it on newspaper. People don't read newspaper anymore, very few. And so the trend as it is today are the social media platforms. Let's cascade that communication so those people can be reached. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll just jump right into the question, and then when we answer this question, we'll wrap it up. I'm very conscious of time. We're almost stepping out of time. My first question from the meeting chats, Mr. Musa Negeri Musa, is asking basically how can IT professionals take control and protect their data within their organizations, protecting it from hackers and protecting it, ensuring that their data is not, breached or leaked, and that there is no threat or any form of attack on their organization. So basically how an organization can protect its data. The second question I'll direct to you, Mr. Oche, since you even touched on this, which is the role of the data fiduciary. When I saw this case, just to give us insight, data fiduciary is a person, a company, or organization that decides how personal data is processed. So we have this in Nigeria. And this question is directed to Mr. Oche. And then the final question. So Mr. Lovely, there any law in Nigeria which limits the data mobile app developers or organizations collect from mobile phone users. A lot of apps developers collect more data than is required. So mobile apps even eavesdrop on the mobile app users. Those are the 3 questions we'll be taking.
Okay, I will say that, yes, both the NDPL or the NDPA and the global GDPR, they are all there to guide activities of data collection, processing, management. They are all there, both on our physical platforms, both on virtual platforms. So one of the things that are most prominent, these data protection regulations are just like that of Nigeria, just came into full existence and full implementation. Our application 2023. Several service providers are working to include data privacy by design when developing their applications. For those who have already deployed, they are also working to adjust their designs, to adjust their applications to be able to capture the interest of every user in their applications or in their platforms, and when it comes to issues of privacy. So in that case, it is required of every service provider to have a data privacy officer, or if you don't have, you should be able to reach out for some consultations before you deploy your applications for services in the global market here in Nigeria, not only here in Nigeria, Africa and globally. Because if you don't do that and there are reports and complaints against you, you have fines to pay. It is very cogent. So we have to be very careful when deploying and designing applications and several other platforms. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lopi. Mr. Ochesa.
All right, so thank you. Let me dive straight into it. You already gave a definition to who a fiduciary is. It's more or less someone who collects information on behalf of another person. And then, of course, he used that information. These are PIIs, personally identifiable information. Use them to perhaps fill a form or transact. Now, their role is very huge. There will need to be some legal flavor to what they do. There needs to be some psychological flavor to what they do. I would say there's what in law is called duty of care, which is more or less being able to ensure that you implement the care required as a responsibility from you to the person giving service to. They have a duty of care to whatever information they receive. All the organizations, and these organizations you were asking whether they exist, all the telecoms fall under that category. Hospitals fall under the category. There's an aspect of their service delivery that falls under that category. Schools fall under the category. Students come to write JAM, write SSC, people write exams. NYSC falls under the category. Whoever receives information from somebody with the hope of using information to secure a particular space or spot or job or whatever. You have recruiters, people who recruit for jobs, they fall under there. So they have to be transparent, right? And then they must ensure they are revised with respect to sharing third-party information. They'd have to be subject to the laws, rules or regulations that protect people's information. And so they must be regulated by appropriate laws. So yes, they play a major role. The next time you go to a bank, you understand that those are your fiduciaries with respect to data. Next time you go to register a SIM card, those people there. This is why we always advise that when people go to do anything sensitive that requires giving personal information, BVN, NIN, ensure that wherever you are doing it is a registered organization, not these roadside people. Don't register SIM cards with people on the outside. They must be accountable. They must be transparent, right? They must also offer duty of care. These are the 3 things I can say off the top of my head. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I sincerely want to appreciate everyone that have joined us on this call, those who are contributing on the chat. I see your message, Ms. Estalin Uloma, and also Madam Ruth Thomas. Thank you so much for contributing. I'm just trying to wrap this up and I want to also sincerely appreciate my speakers who have done a great job educating us. I know that I have learned a lot. Listening to you speak, I've picked up a whole lot of things and I'm now more conscious of how I give out my data. I hope this has been an impactful webinar for every one of us here. So I want to sincerely appreciate my speakers. Thank you so much for making our time to be with us here. Thank you, especially to everyone on this call. On our agenda next And this is to round up the panel discussion. Thank you to our panelists. We'll have our closing remarks from our second room.
Okay. Thanks everyone for this opportunity to come together to learn part of the awareness creation. Those in attendance must have learned a lot today. Many of the things you've heard today are things that may not have heard. But I must say that even myself, I've also learned. Special appreciation to our panelists, in the presence of Rowena Bernard, Loveday, Nola, and Oche Paul. Thank you so much for having this opportunity to be with us as part of awareness and celebrating Data Privacy Day 2025. Just like we've all heard, everything had to come from us. We must protect our data, put our data first in anything that you do, individually, as a family, your private life, even in your workplace. It really matters so much. And like the body, Internet Society Nigerian chapter, we also have so many platforms that create opportunity for people to learn more about what data privacy is all about. We may not learn everything today, but the little that we've heard today should also pour us and motivate us the more to learn what data privacy is all about. Thank you once again for being with us today. We hope that you have more of this knowledge being gained today. Thank you.
I also want to acknowledge the presence of our Vice President, Dr. Akimbo. We're supposed to give the opening speech, but we didn't see you at that time. I also saw the President, Mr. Kunle Olorundare. I know he's on transit. That's why he couldn't be with us today. So finally, I want to thank you all for joining us today and for being part of this important conversation on Data Privacy Day. As we conclude, I encourage every one of us here to take the lessons that we've learned today and apply them in our personal and our professional lives. Let's start asking questions about how our data are being used. Let's advocate for stronger privacy standards. And one thing I want us to remember today is that privacy is actually a collective responsibility. From the conversations we've had, we learned that privacy is a collective responsibility. It's not just for one person. So whether you're a policymaker, whether you're a business leader, whether you're an individual, whether you're a student, whatever you are, our actions matters, and we can help spread the word on how we can better keep our data private. Once again, thank you to our panelists. Thank you to all the Internet Society, ESCOs and members, and to everyone who has participated today. Let's continue to work together for a future where privacy is prioritized and respected. My name is Igba Priscilla. I am the Treasurer for Internet Society Nigeria, and I want to wish you a pleasant rest of the day